Oh, excellent. Kia ora koutou, everyone. I'm Chris Mcdowell from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, and thank you all for coming along to this session to learn more about the amazing Analytics and Research in Government program, of which there's both an internship and a graduate program. So I'm just going to launch right in, do a bit more on the introductions. So yeah, I'm Chris Mcdowell. I've been at MB for about 3 years now, and I started there after coming out of a graduate program similar-ish to the ARG grad program, which wasn't in existence back then. Otherwise, I'd have totally done it instead of the program I did do. But at MB, I work in a team called Data Strategy and Governance. We sort of try and work with all of the different data analysts around MB, make sure that there's a clear strategy everyone's working to, making sure that the technology, the sort of processes we have, the training that we have on offer for staff, that it all kind of lines up so that we're a nice, well-oiled machine. And then on the data governance side of things, we're all about making sure that our data is being used and collected in a responsible and ethical sort of way, so that there's no risk of bad things happening to it or being done with it. So that's me. And then I'll pass to, oh no, I'm trying to make this fun. So yeah, how did I come to work in government? Well, I told you a little about my graduate program that I did. It was called GovTech Talent. Before then, I was at Victoria University doing marine biology. I did, what was it? Ecology and biodiversity and marine biology as majors for a Bachelor of Science. And then I did a Master of Science in marine biology. So it was a bit of a tricky segue at times coming into government, but overall, I think it's been quite nice to sort of broaden my horizons from a, science focused side of things, think about the bigger picture in many ways, but also the experience I got learning to use things like learning to write really well for academic scientific writing. All of that served me really well in my work in government. I'll pass to Logan.
Thanks, Chris. Tēnā koutou. Logan Ashmore. So I work with Matumo Te Tao, which is the Ministry for the Environment. I've been here with the ministry for about 2 years. I'm senior with the data collections and management team, but I'm actually under a full-time secondment to the Waste and Resource Efficiency Division while we're trying to do levy expansion work, identifying our landfills and the data that we need around KPIs and international reporting. So just a lot of support they need in the data space with a lot of moving pieces, and that's pretty much my full-time role. I had a bit of a long and circuitous journey getting here to central government. I started out, did my education in the US. I did a master's in urban planning and GIS, and then I chased it with another master's in demography and statistics. And then I left the US and worked in Asia for a while. So I started out in India working with nonprofits, and then went to Malaysia and worked with environmental consulting companies doing social and economic impact assessments. And then came to New Zealand about 7 years ago after that stint. And since I've been in New Zealand, I've worked at local government and consultancies. And inevitably, it all just funneled towards the top. And after getting that kind of on the ground exposure and experience, I realized to have an influence, to have change, to get into the more gritty, meaty work, you needed to get into central government. So that's eventually how I ended up getting a role at MFE and just applying that variety of data and sort of social and well-being and environmental focused analysis to my job. And I think that's plenty for me. So I will hand it on to our next presenter.
Kia ora everybody, I'm Iyang. And I'm a student at UC. I'm studying software engineering at the moment. However, at the Research and Analytics and Government program, I got to do work in data science, preparing data, and got to learn a new language, coding in R as well. And I was working at MB at the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, where my sole role was being a data and insights intern. I was assigned a buddy and also a mentor, so it was really easy to settle in. And that's me.
Oh, great, thanks, Logan and Yi-Young. Yeah, Yi-Young was with us here at MB, and yeah, she did a great job on her internship, and maybe she'll come and work for us again one day, who knows. So speaking of that internship program, let's tell you some more. So we're going to use the acronym ARG a lot. It's a bit faster to say than analytics and research in government. But basically, this is a program, it's a cross-government program, lots of agencies involved, not just MB and MFE, but many others. And it's got an internship and a graduate program as part of it. So what's our purpose in ARG? So we're trying to basically boost public sector's capability in data analytics, research and evaluation, a whole lot of interconnected areas, which often come back to, having really strong quantitative and qualitative research skills. The world we're living in, data's becoming ever more important. Technology's enabling all sorts of new kinds of research to be done. And, internationally and nationally, there's a huge demand for people who have got the skills to put all of that into practice. And yeah, government's no different. And so definitely a lot of agencies see this program as being a really important way of developing this future pipeline of talent of bright students who want to come and get a taste of what government's like, and then potentially come back once they've finished their degrees and then work for them later on. So that's kind of what's in it for the government. But what's in it for you as an intern or a grad? Well, it's an excellent work experience opportunity. So you've probably come across that old catch-22 issue, or that chicken and egg problem where in order to get a job, you need experience. But how can you get experience if you don't already have a job? It's a bit of a perennial issue, that one. But I really think that an internship like this one, or a graduate program like this one, is an excellent way to get some of that work experience. It's a chance to apply all the theoretical stuff you're learning on your degrees and put it into practice, see how it pans out in a work environment, and not just any work environment, but the public service, which has a really awesome kaupapa or ethos of trying to serve New Zealanders, keep the country safe from threats like COVID and inflation, and make it a better place for everybody. Yeah, so if you were part of this program, you'd be working on some sort of research project, and we sort of take pride in the fact that all of these research projects that our interns and grads work on sort of have really tangible, sort of direct line of sight, I guess, to the outcomes that are helping New Zealanders or businesses or whatever the case may be. So it's not just some ivory tower academic thing, but it's going to have real impact on people. It's research which will enable good decisions to be made, which will have great impacts on people and businesses. Yeah, so basically it's great purpose, great ethos, and an awesome chance for you to launch your data and research career in the public service, hopefully. So that's the program, but who are you? So all I know about you, unfortunately, is that this is the University of Canterbury, and that this is a STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths, careers expo that this presentation's a part of. I hope I've got that right. Right university, yeah. So presumably you've got degrees and backgrounds in things like computer science, data science, information management, maths, statistics, physics, chemistry, engineering. That's all quite STEMmy. If I've got the audience right, probably not so many of you are from an economics, finance, political science background, or policy, social sciences, or anything like that. But if you are, let us know in the Q&A. We can definitely try and speak to you. The point here is, though, that when we're talking about analytics and research, we're not just interested in the STEM subjects. They're great. Any sort of statistical, highly numerate, skill set you might have is great. If you can program in things like R or MATLAB or Stata or SPSS or SAS, or do they still do SAS at university? Hopefully not. Then that's all great, but we don't want to put off anybody who's got more of a humanities background, who thinks, oh, I can't do this because I can't code. We want applications from those people as well, because we definitely have projects which don't require any coding experience. So short answer to like who we're looking for is anyone who's got a research bent. And if you've got those coding skills, that's a bonus, but it's definitely not essential and it shouldn't put you off applying if you don't have it. So what's the benefit of the program? You're going to work on real issues that make a difference. You'll get great work experience opportunities. You know, in the public sector, it's not always what you know, but it is who you know, and being able to show on your CV that you've worked in this team, that you've done X, Y, and Z, and then having a referee who can vouch for you from that job when you go on to apply for the next thing. So it is, having that experience gives a lot of hiring managers a lot of confidence. You know, if you do the internship and want to apply somewhere else, having that internship on your CV will really help. You'll have really great support while you're on this program. My impression of some internships or grad programs is that you're there to make coffee and do the sort of dog's body work around the place, but we try and look after you a lot better than that here. So you'd have a mentor who's the person who can help you figure out what's going on with your work, give you guidance, work quite closely with you pretty much on a daily basis. You'll be part of a cohort of other interns and grads, probably both at the agency where you end up, but also across government. So typically, I think any agency will have something from like 2 or 3 to 8 interns in the intern program. And then in total, there'll be like 30 odd interns across the cohort. So that's a really great cohort to be a part of. The grad program is only 1 year old so far, and we're growing it, but even there, you'll still have at least half a dozen or 10 or whatever grads to be a part of. And as well as the ARG program, there are all sorts of other summer programs that go on in government. So you might be able to hang out with policy graduates, for example, procurement graduates. There's always networking to be had and lots of cool people to meet. We've also got a really great training and development program. So if you're doing the internship, I think there are something like 6 or 7 training sessions on all sorts of topics, and we can talk more about that later. And if you're doing the grad program, there's an even more in-depth set of training that you can do. And then you'd have a government role in your CV, already talked about that. And you can also know that this is a program with a really good sort of retention rate, where once interns have done it, they do tend to come back to work in the public sector once they've finished their degrees. And if you're a graduate, well, it's our first year of the graduate program still in play, but from all appearances, it seems like we'll be keeping plenty of them around as well. So I was saying before how it's a cross-agency program. What have we got here? It started in 2017 and 2018, that summer, with just 4 agencies and 10 interns. Now we're in our 6th year, got 13 agencies and 20 plus interns in the last summer. I think it was more around 30, to be honest. And yeah, then the graduate program also kicked off in February this year. So here are all the different agencies involved, really broad, cut across different parts of government. We've got environmental stuff going on here. We've got health. We've got social sector going on with Oranga Tamariki and MSD, Ministry of Social Development. We've got some pretty heavy-hitting macroeconomic agencies like the Reserve Bank and Treasury. And then we've got Statistics Agency, Stats NZ, got Justice Sector. We've got, you know, a major sort of very customer-oriented delivery agency like ACC. And then of course there's MB, which is doing all sorts of things. So one of the things, if you apply for this program, you can nominate a preferred agency that you'd like to be a part of. But at the end of the day, all of these agencies work on really interesting things, and any sort of public servant should probably expect to go between multiple agencies over the course of their career, see how the other lot do it. You know, it's a really good way to develop yourself into a well-rounded person, kind of like an academic career. You wouldn't just work at one university for your entire academic career. You try and move around from place to place. So training and development outline. This is sort of generally true for both the intern program and the graduate program. The intern program, it's kind of a bit of a quick once over lightly. The graduate program, because you're there for much longer, naturally you're going to go into in more depth. So there'll be an awesome welcome. We'll tell you about the machinery of government, which is how legislation gets passed and what all the agencies are and what they do and that sort of thing. Privacy and ethics with data is a really big deal. The data lifecycle, data assembly and project planning, how to plan out your project so that you don't fail. And telling you about this really cool thing called the integrated data infrastructure. A massive cross-government evidence base. It's like all the amazing data about New Zealanders, but kept secure for research purposes. Tips on problem solving, how to plan your career and make your CV look good based on the experiences you've had in the program. Data visualization using geospatial data. Storylining, how to sort of not just make a graph, but incorporate it into a narrative which tells the story that you're trying to support with your analytics work. And then a bit on algorithms and modeling, sort of a quick once over of how they're being used in government currently. So one other thing I've just realized that we haven't told you about in the slides yet, and I don't know if you've seen the information already, but I should just quickly mention, I've been talking about the internship and the graduate program. The internship's a summer program for 12 weeks, starts in mid-November, finishes in mid-February. Then the graduate program is a 12-month program, runs for 12 months, starts in mid-February 2023, and then finishes 12 months later. So hopefully that, I should have said that at the start, but there, you have it now. So I'll pass to Yi Young to talk a bit about her experience.
Oh, yeah. My internship started exactly 1 week after uni and then ended 1 week before uni. So it gave me plenty of time to kind of like settle into my new environment. And it was in the Wellington office. It was right in the heart of the city. You could see the, you go to the 8th floor of MB and you can see like the beehive on the other side. Yeah, it was really close and central. And I was, like I said before, I was a data and insight intern at the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. And there I contributed to this New Zealand research information system by preparing the MB's data ready for its submission. And yeah, like the New Zealand research information system is going to be eventually like a public interface where you can see where New Zealand is currently forming collaborations and like what projects are underway, what resources are there are being used, how much money is being funded and stuff. But like the data was the data was really complex to input into the system. So that's where I came in and I just standardized the data. And by the end of my internship, I was able to clean up maybe half of MB's data ready for submission. So that felt really rewarding. And like, yes, I actually did something and it will contribute to this public interface that other people in the real world and New Zealanders are going to use and find really useful and helpful. So yeah, and yeah, I did my project in the R coding language, and that was my first time coding in R. So if you're like, oh, I've never coded before, or like I have coded before, I do software engineering, but I've never done the R language before. So I guess my experience can be like example of how my mentors and buddies there were really helpful in like supporting me and leading me in the right direction, or like checking in on me. Yeah. And yeah, so that's my internship experience. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the end as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Young. Young, it was a really cool project. Great example of data engineering, trying to streamline the way in which data is brought somewhere, cleaned up, and then made usable for a new purpose. And it was a pretty thorny challenge, but I think you did really well with that one. Yeah.
Thanks. It put me in a new perspective because I never had to think much about data as a software engineering student, but that was really insightful. Yeah. And I got to, more about it, I got to work into a smaller team with just about 10 people, and there I had a manager who checked in on me, so I've always felt supported, and my mentor who gave me assignments so I could slowly step up and upskill myself in learning the R language. And then I had my buddy who I could go for day-to-day questions, and like really helped me settle into the new environment as well. So yeah, all around a great experience.
Oh, great. So here we go. Key dates and details for the internship. So yeah, it's going to start on the 21st November, finish on the 10th of February there. I feel like that should have been at the start of the slideshow. And one other thing to note is that majority of these internship positions are based in Wellington. If you normally live outside of Wellington, then one thing we do for you is cover the costs of your travel at the start and at the end of your internship. It doesn't say the end there, but that's also the case. So before you start and then after you finish, we'll cover you the cost of your flight or your petrol for driving up or whatever it might be. And then included in this time period is a 2-week shutdown over the Christmas and New Year break. So we expect all the interns to go off on holiday, go home or hang out in Wellington, whatever they want to do. And generally using, the annual leave that you accrue over your internship is usually sufficient more or less to cover that break. And there's a recruitment process. Key thing to know is that applications close on the 14th of August, and I think they open about a month earlier than that. So sometime in the middle of July, the applications will open. And if your initial application is successful, you'll be invited to complete a video interview where you answer some questions with your webcam. And if you're successful after that, you will be shortlisted to a manager at an agency. The manager will look at their shortlist and decide who they want to interview. And then at that point, the manager will contact you directly to try and organize an interview. And you can expect those interviews to happen in early September. And within a week or so of your interview, you should hopefully know whether or not you've been successful. So those are your key dates there. And now pass over to Logan to go into the graduate program in a bit more detail.
Yeah, and there's quite a few similarities, obviously, since this is the same program. So I'll just try and kind of focus on what's a bit different about this program versus just the normal internship. And the internship program has been very popular with our organizations, and we've had so many cases where students were graduating soon or in their final year, and the ministries were in that position where we wish we could give this person more time. We wish we could get them more entrenched into these projects. We've just had such a great experience and great products from the students we brought in that we've decided that the decision was made to make an extended program that's focused more on those students that are close or ready to enter the workforce whenever they're done with the program. And so right now there's only 10 opportunities across 5 of the participating agencies. Hopefully MFE will be adding their name to that list in the next round. This, like Chris was saying, it hasn't inducted any students yet, but you still have a pretty good diversity of choice here in terms of MB, justice, stats, and ministry social development. So a lot of those agencies that sit across the IDI and that larger infrastructure of data about New Zealand and New Zealand's population. And for the next slide. And again, a lot of the same points around training that you would get through this program, but there will be more opportunities across that year for you to attend the development workshops that are through the ARG program, but you will be essentially a full-time employee at this ministry in the way you're treated. So you're going to have your personal development and your professional development goals. You're going to sit down with your manager. You're going to say where you want to move to, where you want to work towards with your career, and develop your own specific training programs around that with your agency to get you to where you want to be in your job. And it's also going to introduce you to a lot more opportunities to just develop those on-job applied skills, sitting in the room, being in meetings, or even presenting with stakeholders and presenting more information across different skill levels, so that you're building that stuff that you just can't necessarily learn in a class or learn in 2 to 3 months on an internship. So the next slide. And again, it's the key dates on this one is it starts in February. It'll be a 12-month-long program. You would be expected to go to Wellington. Some of the costs of that are going to be covered by the program to help your travel getting to Wellington, but you'll still be living there, finding your own accommodations and everything. The idea being that throughout this year that you're with the organization, you are building towards a formal role with that organization. And the hope is that each member organization at the end of that 12 months will have something to offer the student if they want to stay to keep working at that agency. And next slide. And the applications, same deadline as the internship. So have everything in by this 14th of August. It's going to be a bit more formal of a process, and that you'll submit your application, you'll go through a recruiting agency, you'll do some of the standard psychometric testing and things like that you would do for job applications. But then similar to the internship program, you would go through a video interview, and if successful, then be matched to the agencies based on ideally your preferences and how well your preferences are matching with the work program that agency currently has. And if you want to see how to apply, that's on this next slide. So just ilovedata.org, and the applications are going to be opening somewhat soon, the 11th of July. And just a bit of the range of flavor, getting back to that idea that this isn't just, we're not just looking for data people, is that there are projects such as this last round MSD had a project that was focused on actually looking at the idea of ethnicity and measures of ethnicity to help to better analyze population, to better categorize data, to better understand actual trends and determinations within a population. So they had this project that wasn't necessarily data focused, but it was focused around those elements that help inform the data. So this wasn't one I worked on. I'm perfectly familiar with it, but we had a similar thing happen with our intern where they looked at data sovereignty and Maori around waste, but then they also had this applied data project where they took old workbooks that were kind of failing, bad macros and things like that, a lot of information stored in comments. And they worked on a project to basically take these old spreadsheets where data was being stored for the greenhouse gas inventory and converted it into a more formal, tidy data set. We work in R. And again, I'm on the other side of that where I help to do the training sessions and courses in R and programming. So plenty of support from me and others at the agencies in that sector. And then once our intern had gone through and did this conversion of the old workbooks into a formal data set in R, and we had it in AWS S3 to be able to reference. She then performed some pretty interesting analyses that actually took that data, and that would be in the next slide, just some visualizations, took the data. This was focused around tonnage of waste and compositional waste, which then that would inform emissions from waste generated in the country, and actually looked at how the tonnages were being inferred in historic data and modeled alternatives to the old methodology, and came up with a new recommended way of doing assumptions of compositional tonnage for New Zealand, which we're actually going to be implementing into the next year's greenhouse gas inventory. So this intern didn't just do busy work, didn't just do work to help us groom things, actually did something that is going to be applied to our reporting next year. And
that's really huge, isn't it, Logan? I mean, on that last chart there, the proposed model looks like there's a 1,000 kiloton difference. Is that in CO2 emissions from waste?
Yes, yeah. And I mean, in a way, I'm somewhat envious of the interns that come to MFE. I don't know how it is at the other agencies, but we tend to give them the really cool but nice to have projects that we wish could be done. We just don't have time to, we can't budget time for it in business planning. So this was one of those it was on our back burner. It's really cool. We need to get to this, but we can't budget RFT to it. So we fed it to our interns and they really enjoyed it. And this is someone who comes from their PhD program applied in climate sciences and geology. And they've now made the decision, instead of going the more pure research and data route, that they're actually going to come back for a full-time position at MFE. So that exposure to this program actually got them to switch their career trajectory to central government.
Yeah, great. Oh, well, that takes us to the end of what we had to say, but we're really keen to hear from you. So I'm just going to try and, I think I'll put away the slides and then I'll be able to actually see the Q&A a bit more easily. So if you've got a question, put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and sing out. Doesn't look like we've got anything in the chat currently.
No.
I could always start talking a bit about some other past projects if that's interesting. Well, at MB last summer for the internship, we had 8 interns, and including Young, of course, looking at data preparation for the New Zealand Research Information System. As well as that, we had a couple of interns working on dashboards that MB has up on our public-facing website. There was one on migration data, and then the migration one was actually internal use only, and then another one on tourism information. So the tourism one in particular is pretty cool. It's made with JavaScript. It's really swish and fun to use, and it's a way for the tourism industry to kind of go through, understand what trends might be affecting them, and also think not just about the financial kind of, the economic size of the tourism industry, but also about its environmental and social impacts as well. So I mean, if you Google search tourism MBIE Tourism Explorer, you'll find it up on our website, and that's something which an intern worked on. Now it's on our public website, and we've had a similar product, but only for internal use to understand migration data, so that our policy people in Immigration New Zealand, which is part of MB, can understand migration trends. And we had some really interesting work done in my team actually on looking at MB's data and insights workforce. How could that possibly, what would it take to have more Māori and Pacific people working in that area? And then also trying to understand what opportunities there might be for MB to do more with its Māori data, data which is relevant to Māori, iwi Māori interests, for their treaty settlements or for their own sort of economic prosperity, and going through and looking for opportunities and challenges. So that was more of a qualitative research piece right there. Here we go. I've talked for long enough.
Yep, we had a couple questions come in. And one of them was that, could the graduate program be a pathway into policy work in central government? And I do think, I would say yes to that one, based on my experience and what I've seen. It might vary from agency to agency, but I would say as a general rule in central government is, once you're in central government, you don't know where you're going to be in a year. It's a place where you can move very quickly within or into other agencies. So if you had a penchant for policy work, this program could be your exposure to that. You could work on things that specifically measure or do analysis around KPIs and outcomes, for instance, of a given policy. And that gives you that exposure, and you meet the teams that work with it and gives you that pathway into it. But in general, I think central government's pretty good about, once you're there, if you've got an idea of a direction you want to grow, they will allow you to grow that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, our current ARG graduate, is working on, he's working in quite a qualitative sort of space, doing a lot of policy evaluation. That's in a team at MB called Workforce and Workplace, which look at like the labour market. So, how many jobs are there? How many people are there looking for those jobs? And getting into the details of that. And he's trying to understand, he's looking at a whole lot of submissions that we've received on some of the government's latest labour market, proposed labour market reforms, for example, that job insurance scheme, and also the fair pay agreements. And so lots of feedback coming through, really hard to make sense of it. And so our graduates in there trying to systematize it, collate it, and then tell people what's actually being said as part of these submissions.
Yeah.
And at MB, we've got a whole lot of policy training, free to anyone who's a staff member, basically policy training courses. I've gone and done a number of them myself. Personally, I think I'm happy where I am, and I don't want to work as a policy analyst, but if that was your interest, you could certainly look to move sideways across in time, but you might just decide that you'd rather stay where you are.
Yeah. Then the next question, will the assignment day be online or offline, or assessment be online or offline? I'm assuming that's the assessment for applications. And
yeah, there's for the graduate program, when we ran the assessments for it at the end of last year, we had intended to do an assessment center or assessment day where the final shortlisted candidates kind of physically come into a room, meet potential hiring managers, and sort of do some work, sort of exercises and all sorts of things. We actually had to have it online in the end because of COVID, and we ended up basically cutting it right back because you can't do a lot of that stuff online effectively. I'd have to double check exactly about that assessment day, and it'd only be for the graduate program, however, and COVID, and it probably would be in person because that was our original plan.
Yeah, and then there's another question about getting past the psychometric testing. As this person said, they find it really hard, and I might make a comment on there. This is something I've actually brought up with the program. And at least for the graduate program, it's a bit of a pared back psychometric test. It's not looking at personality and employment fit. They've tried to limit it. The recruiting agencies tried to limit it purely to numeric and logical reasoning testing. That being said, if MFE were to join, and we do plan on joining the graduate program, we would make the request that psychometric testing isn't used because we don't use it at MFE full stop. There's too much risk of bias in hiring towards different social or cultural groups. So we don't. So there's a chance that some programs, like if we get ours going, won't use it at all. But even what is used is supposed to be pared back to just core, like numeric and logical reasoning for the purpose of matching you to the various roles that are open.
And we've had that concern has been raised by other agencies, but as well, and our recruiter have told us that it's not a full-on psychometric testing. It's kind of just a few logical and mathematical reasoning exercises, and they're not an instant sort of fail necessarily. I think they look at the whole application. So even if you're concerned about that part of the process, I'd encourage you, definitely still apply, put your best foot forward, and just have a go. And we'll try and we're asking our recruiter to try and look at everyone in a sort of fair and holistic way.
Yeah, and I will say that at the end of the day, that coming from the other side, one of the biggest things we do care about is, can we work with that person? Like, attitude matters a lot. Willingness to learn matters a lot. Willingness to grow and work into the role matters a lot. So from our standpoint, the psychometric testing doesn't carry a lot of weight. And I guess we had another question from me. I mentioned GIS. How often do I get to use GIS at work? Well, so you might have just tapped into a little bit of one of my own professional bugbears. GIS I find very underutilized. Generally in government in New Zealand, there's some agencies that do a lot more with it. MFE is not one of them. I have gotten to do some support in GIS because we happen to have the Lucas team, which they do the land use classification mapping in partnership with Landcare. And occasionally I get to do support work with them, doing like programming Python models for various assessments, or doing automated processing in GIS. So I do get to do it some. It's mostly in support of a team that's ring-fenced to that to a GIS topic. That said, we still don't even have a formal GIS team. So it's there. There are some opportunities in government. I think they're growing, and I think it will be a bigger topic in the future.
Yeah, I've just looked at, I don't know if any of you watch the news, but I understand at midday today, the government was due to release its climate, which one is it? The climate adaptation plan. And there's going to be, there should be some stuff in there about, understanding the impact of climate change on New Zealand. And a lot of that will have a strong GIS component, ultimately, I suspect. So who knows, in a year or two, maybe there'll be a bit more GIS work going on at MFE.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the ones we're looking at. And that being said, in general, all government agencies have been pushed for better evidence, better KPIs and outcomes measures, better monitoring and reporting. So across the board, the data science and investment is growing. So data in general, but GIS as a subcomponent, there's going to be more of it and more opportunities to do that work. And moving on to the next question. So favorite parts of the job, Chris, what's your favorite part?
Well, at MB, we're a huge organization. We work in 17 or so different regulatory areas, tenancy, immigration, science investment, you name it, there's heaps of them. And in my team, I'm lucky enough to be able to, dabble in little areas across each of them, because all of those areas naturally include an amount of data and research and information. So yeah, in my team, I get to get a really broad picture, and every week I learn something new about MB, which it still happens even though I've been here 3 years now. And yeah, just always something new just appeals to me personally. But yeah, there's also lots of opportunity. So even though we're so big, there's just so much work coming at us that there's always a chance to step up and take on something new and try and make a difference. And then as well, yeah, just the importance of the work we do, it's really impactful.
I'll start with the honest answer. And for me, the honest answer is that MFE is a flexible by default employer. So you can pretty much live anywhere in the country that you've got internet access and work for MFE with current policy. So that's got to be my actual favorite part. But in terms of work, I would say it's just there's a bit of a struggle with accessing data in New Zealand if you're on the outside. Having worked in both local government, which are a bit notorious about not having their own data systems sorted in a state where you can access or use them, and having worked in a consultancy, which doesn't have any innate access to, a lot of the data systems in government. Once you're in government, you've got a lot better opportunities, and you're a lot more likely to get access to large and interesting data sources that in many cases are under-analyzed and underutilized. So there's a lot of opportunity there to not just do something, but do something that no one else is doing yet.
How about you, Young?
I really liked how I could just bring my full self to work, because everybody was so accepting, and also because it was really diverse in my team as well, in age and like ethnicity and gender, and also in technical and skill set as well. Like I remember there was someone in my my New Zealand Research Information System team who was really good at engaging with stakeholders, and also I liked how they I was provided with opportunities to like see what the different just like the range of just like the different things that are going on. Like I wanted to join a presentation that was with stakeholders, and then my mentor just let me join, so I did, and then I got to observe how another one of my team members was really good at his like engaging stakeholder and presenting and persuasion skills as well, while my mentor, he was really good at the technical stuff, like coding in R and like writing lots of modules. So yeah, I really liked the people there, how I could bring my full self to work.
Yeah, that's great. With the whole COVID-19 lockdown stuff in 2020 and 21 in particular, it was a bit of a shake-up for government in many ways, but we've come out with some really great things from that. Like Logan was saying, the flexible working remotely, it's definitely a viable option. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for an intern or a graduate, because being there in an office in person, I think really helps you get up to speed and meet people and get help when you need it. But it can even then it can still be nice to have the odd day or 2 or 3 working remotely if that is good for your productivity and helps you get the job done and you're happier that way.
I remember it was raining really, really badly one day. So I just stayed home, and it's just nice knowing there was that option there. And there was work from home equipments that I just had to order online, and it got delivered straight to my flat. So I got like a whole ass really big monitor. I returned it at the end of my internship, but it was just like, you got a lot of support, and yeah, just you imagine it, and they already thought of it to help you. Yeah.
Got a great mix of degrees and majors here. Mixture of undergrad and postgrad.
And you can start work whenever you want and end work whenever you want. There's no clock in, clock out time, but it was still like great being able to step up and have agency and like to like still show up on time and like show to your meeting on time. And even though I had that option to stay at home, I just really want to make full use of this like internship opportunity and really dive deep into my company and see what they're going on. So I pretty much came in every day anyway.
I might say that, and supporting what you were just saying, that there's a I think there's a good culture, at least in my exposure, of trust in central government agencies, that they trust their staff to be working and doing their job and getting things done. So that I haven't personally experienced much of it may happen, but I haven't experienced much of the micromanaging or questioning of your day-to-day, that there's actually quite a bit of latitude to allow people to find the way that they work best and find the best way to get to the end product to deliver what they need to deliver. So that's another thing that I quite like, is that sort of finding your way of working and it being respected.
Yeah, I remember my team, they came in around 8 o'clock. So I came in around 8 o'clock anyway, just because I wanted to get like the full experience, see what they're getting up to as well. But I remember there was like another teammate. I think he worked better later during the day, so he came in later and he worked later. So, and there's a gym. I'm pretty sure there's like a gym in MB or something. I'm not too sure, but I remember
People wander around with yoga mats, and I'm not actually sure where they're going, but there must be something close by.
I think my other intern buddy, he went to the gym downstairs, because I remember him like coming into work and being like, I just came out of the shower from the gym. I'm like, I'm going to the shower for the gym, blah blah. So yeah, just lots of cool stuff happening.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm the start at 6 and at 3.
Oh, nice. How about you, Chris?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I became a father about 7 months ago, and so I'm just start whenever I'm awake and finish whenever, if anything busy is happening. I go into the office about half the time, and then I'm more or less 8:45 until 5:15 sort of thing. But if I'm working from home, I'm just kind of grabbing productive blocks of time wherever I can find them. Yeah.
I remember the workplace being really supportive for parents as well, because my mentor, he was a father too, and sometimes his kids are sick, and then he'll be like, okay, sorry guys, I have to be working from home. And then our team was so supportive and understanding. And one day he was like, I'm gonna be a tad late for this meeting because my kid won't leave the house. It's like having a tantrum, and then everybody's just like, it's cool. Yeah.
My first manager at MFE scheduled their day around student drop off and pick up.
So did my mentor as well. At 3 o'clock, they had to go to pick up their kid.
Yeah, it's super flexible and accommodating, eh? Oh, Young, I had an idea of a question for you, because you're from Christchurch as well, obviously. How did you find it moving to Wellington for the summer? Because you'd have had to organise transport and a flat and all sorts.
Yeah, I coordinated with Javanti, which is like my assistant in my team. and she I booked my flights to a day that suited me, and I sent her the receipt or something, and then she reimbursed me, so they covered my travel costs. And it was also my first time in Wellington, but I had my buddy who took me around trying out new food places. And because the internship, at least the ARG internship program kind of felt quite big, there was a lot of other interns as well, so you could hang out with them, and because you guys are exploring the city in the same boat, going through kind of the similar experiences but slightly different, as they might be working at like the Ministry of Education and you might be working at like, I don't know, the Ministry of Business. So yeah, it was fun connecting. It was easy to like settle into Wellington because you got those people to connect with who are kind of in the same boat, but you still get to learn a little bit of insight about what they're doing. And also there was 8 interns in my company, so we just hung around. All our buddies just hung around, and we had like ice cream days every Friday, and we went to, I think, Adventure Forest, and yeah, just it was really fun.
Oh, great. I think we must be needing to finish soon so people can get away and go to stuff if they have it at 3 o'clock. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning up, and thanks especially you, Young, for showing up and telling us about how you got on. She's not being paid to do this, by the way. And yeah, I'm just putting my email address, my work email address here in the chat. So if you've got any questions about, whoops, I need to send that to everybody. Let's do that. Here we go. Yeah, so if you've got any more questions, I'm happy to answer them if you just email me at work there. And yeah, definitely apply. It's an amazing program, and I hope to see some of you this summer on the program.
You learn a lot along the way, yeah. Not just your own program, but also other people's projects as well. So it's a really great experience.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris, Logan, and Young, for your time and for sharing with us your experiences. It's been really great to have you join us for our careers fair. And thank you to everyone for all the students for joining in as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cool. Ka kite. See you later.